Hi there. So this morning I had the pleasure of speaking with one of my patrons and someone whom I admire in this town. Her name is Kyra Riddell. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She has a master's in counseling psychology. She concentrates mostly on somatic psychotherapy and trauma healing. She's a lovely and brilliant human being. This is my third interview, and I really love this opportunity to be able to connect with people from my home using the Zoom conference call. So please settle in and join us along our conversation as we weave in topics of creativity, trauma healing, and how to slow down in this fast paced society to live a more harmonious life with our bodies and with each other. Thank you. Okay. So recently I started a webpage where I bring facets of my creativity to one place, and I explore spirituality, music making, art, play, conscious living. And I've opened it up as sort of an unfolding event where I'm creating a show, bringing all of those things together. And there are people who have begun to join me as patrons.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is Kyra.
Hi, happy to be here.
And so I'm noticing that the people that have jumped on board to support me and what I'm doing have been people that I in turn would like to support somehow and to get to know and to connect with, and I feel have tremendous value. And so what I've been wanting to do is have interviews with my patrons. And so, of course, I asked first, and she agreed to have this conversation with me. So thank you, Kyra.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in the same community as her, and I haven't had the opportunity to get to know her as much as I would like, but she's definitely someone I admire, and I'm really happy to get to know a little bit more about through this interview. And so I just want to light a candle for you. Put it here. Honor you. I'll put it here. I'll put it here. I'll put it, yeah, a little bit like that. Okay.
Just right. Finding that.
Is that good? All right.
Set the space.
And also, I'm a little hungry, so I might snack on this banana. And do you have something to drink?
I do. Have mine.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Awesome. Okay. So, Kyra, would you like to just go ahead and introduce yourself while I pull up the questions that I would like to ask?
Sure. So yeah, my full name is Kyra Riddell. And as you said, Heather, I also live in the same small town of Ojai and also have really admired you and wanted to get to know you more. And so this is really fun. And when I saw the patron or patron?
The website is called, or the forum is called Patreon.
Patreon.
And you are my patron.
Yes, yes. So I love that site because it's such a wonderful way to be able to support artists in every form. And so I saw that and I was like, yes, I definitely want to support Heather. And then in turn, this is a fun way to be supported as well. So I don't share a lot of my own creativity publicly. So yeah. Is there more that you'd like me to say as far as intro?
Oh, no, not at all. That sounds beautiful. Thank you, Kyra. This is great. All right. I feel like I'm just going to take one bite of my little banana.
Yeah, get some water.
So I have done 2 interviews so far. This is my third. And each one I've asked roughly the same 4 questions, and I think that's what I'm going to continue doing. And then, of course, whatever stems from those is wonderful. And so the first question is about creativity, and it can be translated in so many ways. And so would you mind telling me what relationship you have to creativity in your life?
Sure. So I think creativity takes a few different forms. It definitely shows up in its day-to-day as a mother,
Yeah.
creation of life. And creativity to me is also like forming of yourself. So in just that basic expression. And then, my passions as well that I more personally identify to. And that is certainly through my work as a licensed marriage and family therapist. And it doesn't maybe show up as much through the physical, but more through expression with me, because I think with my clients and my work, it's a lot of doing interpersonal work.
Mm-hmm.
So spirituality is also part of my creativity, and kind of evolving consciousness and being with life. And then how that shows up in my work with clients too, and just my personal relationships.
Yeah.
Those are my forms of creativity.
Beautiful. Those are really important forms of creativity. Yes. So there's internal and external. The mother-daughter is more of an external, but I love what you're talking about, like being like an alchemist of the inner worlds for for people. It's really beautiful. I'm really intrigued by the work that you do. Really, so my next question is, who are you creating yourself to be in this lifetime, in this world? And is that part of it? Is that part of it? Do you there's I feel like there's this role of being I don't know. Just tell me about the work that you do, and like,
Sure.
is that who you're refining yourself to be? Like, it seems like such a powerful, like, beautiful position.
It it's taken a long time. I think. I mean, as one of the capacities I think as a therapist is you can go to the macro view really easily. So not to get like, I'll try to work on not getting too far out, but I would definitely say in that like far out perspective, it's all creativity, right? This is all like our creation.
Yeah.
And co-creation and individual creation. And so what I've learned in my work as a therapist, especially as a somatic therapist, which is more of a mind-body holistic psychotherapist, is I've been able to take all my own spiritual seekings, which I've been pretty kind of always interested in the eternal world, like archetype and myth and intuition, but I kind of got set on more of a pretty heavy duty spiritual path when I was like 19 or 20. And then that, it kind of like chilled out. It's always a little obnoxious in the beginning, I think, when people first find their spirituality. There's that initial phase of like, oh my God, I found this thing and everybody has to know. And then now it's like chilled out to become more just my own. I'll share it if people want. But the way that it connects in with my work is I feel like all the personal work that I've done, which is that wounded healer identity, shows up with my clients. And what's fun about it, what I love about it, is they all keep me on my toes. So there's some that I'm like, oh, okay, I know how to support this person. I've got a lot of the tools. I know how to like help them across the bridge, so to speak. And then other people where I'm like, ooh, I feel like I don't know enough here about this issue. And so I've got to do all this internal work and also like reading and knowledge and understanding to like just get a little bit ahead of them on that curve of internal growth, or
Wow.
be with them, but I at least want to kind of get a sense of like, where are we going? And so that to me is like a really fun way of doing that together. But the other piece that's important to say is that has required me to do enough healing that I come together in more of a cohesive self for my clients, because it used to be a lot more split. It was like, as I was learning to become a therapist, just younger days of like grad school, which I was 29 when I started grad school. So it wasn't like I was 21 fresh out the gate of college, but I still had a lot of healing to do of fragmented selves, splits. We all have fragmented selves. Nobody gets unscathed from trauma. And so having to help those parts be more cohesive. Initially, it used to just be therapist self. And then Kyra over here living her life, maybe is like working self, like personal Kyra, but they didn't all tie together very well. And there wasn't a lot of integrity there for me. So that was kind of part of my self-work, was to have more cohesion and integrity. And that's also what I'm helping my clients do. So yeah. And being a mother really, really brought all that together for me. Because you want to show up for this amazing little being. I certainly wanted to. I was 35 when I had her, so I'm so glad I wasn't 25 and so steeped in my trauma and passing along those mother wounds. So it's nice to be at this point and feel like I want to do it the way that feels like integrity to me. And that's creation, right?
Wow. I just want to hold up like a huge banner for you, like, you're amazing. This like sense of responsibility that you have to be doing it right, or to be like a good person, or the responsibility that you feel to meet your clients. It's like, it's such a virtue. It seems so rare. And did you always have that throughout your whole life, that like desire to be so beautiful?
Well, my dad was he was a director of a school, Happy Valley. It's now Besant Hill School in Upper Illinois. So he was the director there for 25 years, and he taught ethics and comparative religion as well.
Okay.
I come from the background of, they're like intellectuals and philosophers, and but I didn't always take that on. I became a somatic therapist. I'm like, I'm going to go into the body and intuition and very right brain and figure all that out. But so some of that's already there as part of my foundation, but I would say my own healing path interrupted that for me for a long time, even though that might be at my heart of hearts. I didn't lead my life with integrity when like trauma was the front runner at the helm, which it usually was for most of my life. So it wasn't really until maybe I turned 30 that I started to turn that around.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 40 now. So the past 10 years, I feel like I've made real growth. So I could maybe talk the talk, but I didn't quite know how to walk the walk yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Some people go a lot longer without walking the walk. So thank you for being such a great role model.
Mm-hmm. I never think of myself that way, so thank you.
I do. I think of you like that. I don't really, I haven't really connected with you before, but I'm always like, if I ever think, who are the pinnacles of this community that I really admire? And you're always right there.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just some sort of like inner knowing that I have. I don't really know. And for me, like, I'm striving every day. I want to do the right I had so much trauma. I've been processing. I've come out the other side of some of it, and I'm 40 now, and I feel like, we talk like, oh, now like we're grown up and we're women now, and it's like, what do I want to do, and what is my role, what is my responsibility, and like every day I wake up and I have to have some fuel source to push myself, and mine comes from, I don't know where it comes from. It seems like a divine, just like GPS, I kind of just surrender to something, and I just, it has to do with nature and fueling my cells, and so the next question is, like, what fuels you in particular to keep going on this path of integrity and to be such a great mother? I mean, I know that that's probably a huge one, but yeah.
I love the questions that you're asking yourself, and definitely, as we talked, feel at a similar place, right? 40.
Yeah.
And there's also, gosh, I think with like each decade, you can kind of hit this place of like, am I at that mark, that internal like developmental mark that I want to be at for whatever that age means to me? And those feel like really significant questions to be asking at this time. And I know certainly people really struggle if they feel like they haven't found a particular rudder. And I'm not speaking in terms of the success patriarchal model, because that we all need a serious amount of deprogramming from that. And certainly, as like somebody who's been on this path that I've loved and found, I can get a lot of that projection of success. But like, it's not for that. It's not for that. Never has been. I don't wave that around like a badge, it's just going into that like sense of like innate need for purpose as human beings. And for some people, that's the purpose, to just be an adventurer, an explorer, that can look really different for each person. But finding that is really important. And I think when people don't, they have a lot of spiritual, emotional crisis. And it doesn't have to look like something super grand. You can totally be just a server and doing your life, single mom, whatever. It's not going to look in that like cookie cutter patriarchal way. It's just finding whatever that is, that inner sense of purpose. Yeah. And so I think maybe it's, for me personally, I mean, I'm a Leo with a Capricorn moon, and I'm also an earth horse. Mm-hmm. And so I've always been driven. So that's part of my nature. Not unbalanced masculine, just really always been driven. I am just the kind of person that like leave no stone unturned. And there's adventure in that. So I'm not sure, I'm trying to remember the heart of the question, but like, I think that's just part of the passion for me. Yeah. Is the constant seeking. Mm-hmm. And I may need a jog on the question if I veered off, but.
No, I just wanted to know what your fuel source was, and right. You're answering it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a lot of the passion for figuring out how life works. There's definitely a nerdy side of me that like the psyche is like a little Rubik's cube, and I just want to figure it out. And it's fascinating and endless and multifaceted. And people are, there's so many parts of ourselves. We're not like one just whole self. We've got lots of selves, and sometimes they're fragmented and sometimes they're more cohesive.
When you say psyche, I just immediately like, are you interested in like the micro and macro? Like the inner and, and the outer. And I don't know, would you say something about that?
Yeah. In some ways, to me, they're one and the same. So, you ever read that book, Holographic Universe?
No, but I've heard of it.
Yeah. So it's kind of like in some ways, all the work is internal work, right? It's all internal work. It's working on our emotional triggers and issues and imbalances and distortions, and all of that internal work is when we do that, like shifts what's happening out here. And not in that I don't totally subscribe to all the law of attraction stuff, and that's just because I'm a little bit more of a like hypothetical brain. I don't like to get just stuck on something. So, but I definitely do believe that what is out here is the creation of what we're doing inside. And if I want to get there and like go big and go out there, like to me that's all source energy. And I think it's just fun to explore the psyche in that way, because the internal world to me is where it's at. To me, I'm like, that's,
Yeah.
and sometimes I have to make sure I don't hang out in there too long or too often. I need to like go out and socialize.
Yeah. How you're doing in there. Go out and see how you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I have to do that once in a while. Like, let's see how I'm doing. Let's go out there.
Yes, and it's always a good humble reminder of how I'm doing.
Totally.
Yeah. So that definitely the psyche to me is a lot also held in the body. That's why I'm a somatic therapist, because the body is a warehouse of emotions and sensations, and this thing is our experiencer of life, constantly taking in information from the environment and energies and whatnot. And it's a filter. It's a sensory stimulus filter. And this is where our experiences are happening. This up here is just the computer that synthesizes and puts it all together. And we've gotten way overemphasized on the mind up here from all those philosophers and Descartes and all of that. But it's the being in our full self of embodiment, because the mind and body aren't separate. It's all part of one system or multiple systems.
So do you feel that the body could be, instead of being used, it could be utilized like more properly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to say to my clients, your body isn't just some vehicle it isn't just like a mechanical vehicle that gets you around with like flesh and bone. That's not its only function. It's also holding all of your memories. It's also, all the organs are like little emotional warehouses. The gut brain, that whole piece that's taken off, right? Really, in some ways, we have three brains. We have the gut brain, the heart brain, and the head brain. And actually, the gut brain is the first brain.
Yeah.
Right? If you think of starfish and our ancestors, that's like starfish. They're like little walking gut brains, right?
Yeah.
Give you that lovely image.
Yeah.
They're all like sensory, and their little mouth or head is right in the middle, and that they're just feeling their way. And all of a sudden it evolved to like, oh, we'll just take that like top starfish like tentacle and move the head and the mouth up there and feel our way through life. So I like to think of it like that. It's like, yeah.
That's awesome. I was just recently, like last week, I was like, oh, I'm like this amoeba or this sort of form that's going around and like, oh, hot here, like, no, oh, cold, oh no, electric, oh, and then forming myself like, where's my pocket? Where, and I love that. I haven't thought of the starfish. And thank you for beginning to talk about the body and the memory, and because the last question is, what are some tools that you've collected to help overcome challenges and the sufferings of being a human that are just, collected and not just in your mind from your memories or whatever, but maybe the more like real, reliable memories, because you don't always remember correctly but your body actually has the truth. And you are doing the important work as a somatic therapist to really like get some healing done. And I would love for you to just talk about yeah, all of that. Yeah. And stuff, suffering, maybe, that personal experiences, and how did you get to this point to want to do this work? And it seems new to me, just the past couple of years, me really knowing like, oh yeah, like I need to exercise stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
That's important.
Yes. And if people can get more of that like holistic sense of the body and mind and themselves, that then it's not so compartmentalized, like I think, and then I exercise, and it's more of a whole being. And yeah, I guess, let's see, think of they're intertwined. So the personal piece leads into, that's like the wounded healer, being a therapist and what I teach my clients. So I think personally, I was in my own spiritual, emotional crisis when I was 19 and had a lot of pain that I hadn't processed from my own developmental trauma and some shock traumas. And I was just dealing with it in the way that so many people deal with it, which was through escape and numbing out, drugs and alcohol, self-sabotage. And that, I think when we don't know how to heal, those are the pieces we gravitate towards. And how do we, comfort or repeat those patterns of trauma through substances and food and relationships and all of that. And so I was desperate for help. And I had met this woman, Fiona Whitmore, who lives in Ojai, and she's kind of not super public. Not, some people know about her, some people don't, but she had started this sort of energy mystery school, so Ojai, and called Helix Institute of Chi. And I went to her as my own personal, like, spiritual counselor for like 4 years. And I did that school for 4 years. So I started to learn about energy work and that internal realm. And I also was always interested in like the body and intuition. And I think because my dad is such an intellectual and my brother is as well, who I primarily grew up with, I kind of had like a little bit of an aversion, and I wasn't as much of that left brain type myself. So it was much more right brain intuitive. So I just went with that. I went into that. And I appreciate that my dad supported that. He, even though he was like, you're wired differently than I am, he still was like, go find your passion, like find what works for you. And so after meeting this woman and doing that work, I started to go to undergrad psychology school. And then I discovered somatic psychology, which wasn't really known still too much then. It's been being developed for like the past, well, you could say 20, 30 years, but really since like Reich, Wilhelm Reich. So he was the scapegoat of the psychoanalytic crew back in like Geneva in the Freudian's time, 1920s or whatnot. And it also comes from a bunch of body workers too. So somatics comes from many different backgrounds. But I found California Institute of Integral Studies in San Francisco. And so I went there for my grad school program and got a master's in somatic psychotherapy. And then it kept just building on top of the tools. But so a lot of the body oriented tools that really ended up Fiona originally taught me also were happening to hit the psychology, like market, so to speak, or field, around, it was just getting hot around the time I was going to grad school. So it was really exciting to like see that. And now it's definitely become such the buzzword, like embodiment and right. I feel like, what is that? What does it mean? And so much of the time with clients, you have to go through these initial few months of teaching them like how to be in their bodies and for them to get that bottom up experience. So top down therapy is like that CBT work, bottom up is like somatic work, to get the experience of what it actually means to be in your body. And so I'll speak to that part because that part answers that question more. So a lot of it to me is about grounding our conscious energy into our physical vehicle. And if people don't like spiritual language, I don't use any spiritual language, but to me, it's also a very spiritual piece. And I think of that, if you like shook up a can of soda and the bubbles were everywhere, that would be your sympathetic nervous system going into a fight and flight. And if you set that can down on a table, all those bubbles will start to settle. And to me, that's grounding. So if you can feel your feet and feel your legs or feel your seat on your seat, wherever you can feel a sense of grounding, and that might be different for different people. Sometimes it's visualizing it. Yeah. Sometimes it's feeling your two sit bones, right? And kind of just rocking a little bit side to side and getting a sense of your sit bones. And maybe even noticing if one sit bone is a little less settled than the other sit bone. And that's okay. It just starts to show us how is my grounding inside myself and where am I bracing and poised perhaps for a potential threat in my environment.
Wow.
Right? Or am I really just very numb and disconnected and I don't have any sense of my limbs or legs? And sometimes there's shame around that. So I'm really sensitive around the languaging I use with clients. So a lot of that. And I'm aware as well, of your traumas too, right? So I think it's important to think about the body also carries our story and none of it's wrong. So it's just learning how to re-inhabit ourselves and notice where we've been living. And some people live up here. They're not even in their body because the body's not a safe place to be. Some people, their boundary was so overridden by multiple abuses that it just wasn't safe to be here at all. And so I never want to shame a client for that. It's like, that's a really good reason. That's really smart, intelligent design to not be here if that was scary and chaotic and overwhelming. And so I think to me, it's just like when we can come back home to ourselves, it's scary. And yet that is exactly where the magic is. That's where the healing happens. So it's teaching people to like, best way I can also think of it, I love analogies, is if your body is sort of like this ocean of chaos or kind of a frightening realm of, that you're creating this little island, this little safe space, kind of like settle down onto and be able to manage viewing that chaos. And that might be grounding, might be feeling into your senses and noticing safety in your environment. Feeling picturing a beautiful color around you, right? It's just like anything that helps you go, yeah. And that there's so many somatic tools that are in the tool bag that work with that. And to me, that's like self-regulation, right? Can I be here and not be stuck in a survival response? Can I thrive?
Yeah.
And so many of us get stuck in survival responses: fight, flight, freeze, friend. And if we're not aware of our bodies, we're not aware of what's happening.
Yeah. Life could be so much richer if you take that time to explore that whole new territory that we've never really been taught or encouraged to do. And there's a whole other experience there. What is the new experience when you feel grounded?
Great question. I love that. Dan Siegel talks about it as the window of tolerance. So it's finding a little calm in the storm. So it also might mean that you have just a wider window of capacity to deal with stress. It doesn't overwhelm you as much, or even if it starts to, you have a way to start to settle your nervous system. And so if you think of like that really lovely window, and life doesn't move like that, right? We have to go up and down throughout the day. If somebody like upsets you or cuts you off or does something, right, it's going to ramp you up. And then we want to be able to settle and regulate again and go back into rest and digest. But if we can't, we're stuck up here, like revved up, or stuck down here. So that middle area, the regulation is coming back to a place of calm, which when we're calm and we feel safe, then we can feel playful and we can explore, we can feel more confident, it's safe to be ourselves. And like all of that starts to come out like a little blossoming flower, right? It's like, oh, I can be myself, yay. And joy and all those other pieces come online. It's like constriction, right? Constriction versus expansion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like, oh gosh, I don't want to go down too much of this route, but what you just said is like, why isn't that fostered and why isn't that catered to in our overall society? It's like, well, you could probably guess why people don't want everyone to be like blossoming, unpredictable, beautiful flowers in their own authentic way. But we have to get there.
Mm-hmm. And people are discovering it more. That's evolution, right? I think every time we reach that new point, we always ask those questions because it's like, aha. But yes, also bigger piece of like, why hasn't that been fostered? We're more easily controlled, right? But definitely another conversation. But I think now that the not to tout it too hard because I love somatic psychology, so I'm clearly biased, but now that that's more in the layman field, it's starting to weave its way into schools, into like with police and emergency response and nurses to understand how trauma response and stress response happens. You know, if someone's in a car accident and a police officer is like, what's your name? What happened? Da, 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 da. That person's probably still in shock. And some of that's critical so that you're assessing how aware they are. But you're also kind of in the act of continuing the trauma, re-traumatizing. You're not giving them an opportunity to settle.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's starting to do that. But yeah, it would be amazing if maybe more of that started to happen, you know.
Well, it's great that we're having a conversation, and then there's another video out there with this encouragement and permission to explore this. And I was talking to you before, and you said that you recently completed or started a new touch training, and would you like to talk about that?
Well, yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, that's founded by Aline Lapierre, and she started Neuroaffective Touch. There's also an incredible book on developmental trauma that she co-wrote with Lawrence Heller that came out a year or so ago called Healing Developmental Trauma. Fascinating, amazing book, really good for healing, and really talks about all of this that I've been talking about. And she synthesized all of this somatic work and developed a touch modality. So I have a table in my office. And what's so fun about this too, I'll just say before that, is that I did this energy work with Fiona. And so it's really fun that it's now coming back, because part of my passion was the touch work. And I've had to really learn how to have like the psychotherapist brain. Sometimes I can get a little word salad. I've had to really work on that. So to me, the part that like feels like really big part of my own like healing is working with my hands. But I didn't want to become a massage therapist. So doing the neuroaffective touch is these really, it can be very gentle holds. And it can also be a little more, almost just like holding these points, you know, like a little bit deeper work almost. But it's not massage. And also can work with the gut and any systems of the body. But the idea is that even when I have clients do somatic exercises, it's a lot longer learning curve to get to know the body. So when you have them get on the table, when they're ready, you do a trauma history, you really talk about it, you have a legal and ethical consent form they sign, all of that. But when they start to get on the table, the touch instantly teaches them. They gain awareness about those parts of their body. They gain awareness about bracing patterns, where they're not living in their body, and those parts of the body have the story. And so when you can hold that, all of this unwinding begins to happen. If it's a bracing pattern, if it's a numbing dissociative pattern, all this energy starts to come back in, because the body wants to heal always. And it's supporting that process of life force. Where did the life force leave, or where's the life force blocked? And so creating more flow. And when that happens, people have emotional release. And then they get the neural connections that happen of, oh, and then all this beautiful stuff comes up. Things just like muscles have stories, you know, organs have stories. Like, I've been working so hard, right?
Yeah.
I've been giving to everybody. And you're like, yeah, it's time for you to receive, right? And it's just like, the whole body is like, yes.
Yeah.
And so just working with those layers, or working with, you know, the stomach or the kidneys, and just like helping them settle and balance and restore. And it's amazing what happens, because then all of a sudden people are like, oh, I'm calmer, or, oh, I'm not having those OCD anxiety like compulsions as much. Like, I just realized it was okay, like, because they're developing more self-agency, more safety, more self-reliance. So it's like rewiring, reteaching them how to be with themselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I feel like there's just been this emphasis for so long on demand of every person. Like, you have to do, you know, and where does it even start? I mean, I know that there's this man doing you know, the birth story, and you know, how you come out, and how you hold yourself based. And it's like, okay, so you're 40 years old, and each thing that happens develops a new, it's like peeling off these layers and layers and layers, and what a job. And then to just like release that feeling of like, there's no demand of you, like, just let your body just like relax and be.
Mm-hmm. And when there is a demand, it's like I can figure out how to manage that better, because I'm listening to myself and I'm listening to my body. The body moves slower. It happens in real time. The brain wants to go fast. The brain gets frustrated. It's just like, you should do this, do this, do that. And come on, let's just get it, body. The body's like a sad puppy that's getting dragged around sometimes.
Yeah.
And its only way of communicating its unhappiness is like usually through pain and you know, sensations. So it's and emotions.
Yeah, I know. The lesson, you know, being using a wheelchair, having paralysis, like has really forced me to, wow, I really have to go slow, and I have to, it takes me so long to get dressed. It takes me so long to accomplish a task. It takes me so long. And so that was one way it's been instilled, but I even want to go more slowly, even after learning how slow you have to go being paralyzed and in a wheelchair. I feel like for me, and everyone may be different, but I don't know if it's because of all the different traumas or experiences, but I just want to go so slow. And I keep talking about the patience of nature and how slow nature moves. And I feel so blessed that I can live in this home surrounded by all of this natural activity with animals and plants, and it's very silent. And I think that's what I want to convey through a lot of my messages and my videos too, is it's okay to go, like, let's all just slow down, and maybe everyone,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm
No,
saying.
I thought about that for you. I was admiring and appreciative, noticing your self-care and pacing, to just setting up the video and getting nourishment and having this, like, oh, I'm going to tend to that need. I'm listening and I'm going to tend to that need. And just letting it not have to be this rushed experience. It's like, oh, right. Yeah. Like, as we'd hope to be. And I'm a recovering flight, fight, response person, more flight. So recovering workaholic and go, 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 and adrenals and all of that. So I'm constantly working on slowing down. And I thought that must give you, it's like that perspective, like being at more of a kind of the nature has that slower speed, and it's very healing. It's very harmonious. Go at that slower speed.
Yeah, and I crave to meet people here.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a battle in me to, because I want to meet people. I usually cater a little more. It feels that way to me. So I want to meet people, where they are. And so it's been a battle of like, I really need to take care of myself. It's like a survival thing at this point. I can't afford to I can't afford to get stressed out. I can't afford the discomfort. And so there's this inner, voice like, oh no, don't go use the restroom. Kyra's been waiting already so long, and it's like,
and I was like, go Heather. Yes. Good for you.
I really respect you. But like, we have to I feel like we have to honor, ourselves. We really have to listen and honor ourselves first, but also, convey the respect and honor. It's a balance.
It's a societal disease to go this fast. I think that in itself is a bit traumatic to the body, to go as fast as society wants us to.
Yeah.
And the demands.
Yeah.
So you're creating a really nurturing space by doing that.
Thank you. That's definitely what I hope to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And helping people connect into that space. That is really important.
So how do you have do you have an office? Do you have lots of clients? Do you have room for any more? Do you want to be like contacted, or
my plug?
I mean, because just listening to you talk, and and the power of suggestion is strong, and I'm like, wow, she knows what she's doing. I feel good. I need more of that in my life. You need to surround yourself with people that
yes,
help you,
feed you. I think so I have an office in Ventura. I prefer that because living in Ojai, it's such a small town. I need a little anonymity.
Yeah.
So I have an office just right off like Santa Clara and Ash Street by Spencer McKenzie's, so right there.
Okay.
It's my own private practice, my own office,
Nice.
with the table in there that has 2 cozy layers of memory foam on top to support people's bodies, and pillows and blankets and all that good stuff. And of course, a couch where I do most of my therapy until I can convince my clients to get on the table.
Yeah.
And because the neuroaffective touch is a newer certification, even though I was already using touch work and had some training in that, I'm starting to do more of that in my work. So I'm even considering, I do traditional, psychotherapy, but it's somatic, mind, body. And I have a website too, which is just KyraRiddell.com, just KyraRiddell.com. And that, I'm going to add on there, I think at some point, my 3rd training for this neuroaffective module is in June, to just maybe do only body sessions sometimes for people that either have a therapist they're already connected to, maybe they don't want the psychotherapy, but they just want the body work. But I'm still a therapist, so I kind of have to figure out what are like the legal, ethical, business pieces around that. But it could just be like somatic sessions, right? So I think I certainly want to do that as well. And I have 14 clients right now. So it feels, I work about 4 days a week, and I've got my little 5-year-old, and so it feels like a good balance. I'm really listening to that same like speed of, I don't have to go too fast. I don't have to do too much. I can just really listen to what feels like enough. And I'm kind of letting that grow bit by bit, what I can manage and tolerate. So it feels good. And I do have, some openings as well. And I may have more openings for just the somatic work too. Because, yeah, I love that. And I want to do more of it, have people benefit from it. But I love this opportunity to get to share it, Heather. I feel so appreciative. I just feel like I get in my little bubble of being a mom and going to work and sometimes getting out to play more. But I don't really talk about it much. There's that confidentiality piece, of course, clearly, but just the work that I do, I haven't really branched out to talk about it a whole lot. So this is fun. It's been fun.
I'm glad you got some enjoyment out of it, and I'm certainly blown away and feel like I want to integrate all of this. And I'm just looking outside at the sunny patches in the grass, and it's tall again. If you want to come over and have a tea party with us.
Definitely. That would be fun.
Yeah. Wow. Whew. Thank you so much. I'm gonna pick a random word out of the dictionary.
Fun. Love it.
Oh, it says mourn, to mourn, to feel or express sorrow. Well, all of it. Last night I was talking to River, and we were talking about like how everything is existing all at the same time. So like I'm feeling this great sense of wonder and appreciation and gratitude and love and fascination, and with growing there's like a shedding, right? Also, so it's like just I love that permission to like grieve or mourn in a without having such a negative connotation around it.
I see it as part of the growth process.
Yeah.
Grief is the release of those blocks, it's part of the growth process. It's actually a good sign of healing when we grieve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I will stop the recording, and thank you so much for joining me. And then if you don't mind, I'll put your website on the bottom.
Sure. Yes,
And
please.
thank you for being my patron. And I love doing the interview process as part of my creative process. But like, it's unfolding. So thanks for joining me for the ride. Who knows what's going to happen?
It's fun. I can't wait to see more.
Thank you. Well, I'm just going to stop this and then stay on with me.